what's up everyone, Psychosocial. Hey, I wanted to do a video now that I've graded the first discussion board. First, I want to clarify a couple of discussion board things. So if you watch this video, at least watch the first part, second part when I review it if you don't want to watch it. It's up to you, but really focus on this first part. And then I want to kind of a couple of patterns that I saw, or a couple of things that people brought up that were interesting in the first discussion board. I wanted to just kind of discuss a little bit, and then maybe just kind of put a little bow on top of the therapeutic communication, discuss a little bit about verbal judo. But so to start with the discussion boards, I was lenient. I gave everybody full credit, but I won't next time, and that includes the verbal judo one. And reasons why I will take points off is one big thing that I saw that was missed was a citation. But I have gotten a couple emails, and so I know that I know that I've discussed it in a couple of different videos as far as what that expectation is as far as the citation. I'm thinking that some people just haven't looked at the discussion board guidelines or rubrics, so that would be your first step, is to look at that, because I will follow that pretty strictly from now on. And if there's anything missing, then I will dock points for that. But the big one is the citation. So what am I looking for in a citation? Well, most people didn't do any citations, so that was so I'll take the credit, blame for that one, because I didn't communicate that well. Some people who did citations posted like the reading, or a couple people posted like a book that maybe you guys got, like the motivational interviewing book. More what I'm looking for is I'm looking for you finding a scholarly source to substantiate or support whatever you're saying. Whatever your point is, whatever reason you did something, whatever reason you're disagreeing or agreeing or whatever, one of your postings, either your initial or your follow-ups, one of them has to have a source, preferably an article or some sort of scholarly news site. Medscape, I would say, well, Medscape might be fine. I don't know. But like not Wikipedia, of course. No, just like random Google articles that you just found on Google. Something that has scholarly sort of credibility to it. Just like an article, like a research article that you find, or a case study, or something like that. Not your textbook, not my assigned reading. If you use the textbook or assigned reading as a citation in your discussion board, great. But I kind of assume you already are, because I have assigned the reading, so I assume you're using that as a source. You don't have to cite it. When you do cite it, I want you to on the bottom, essentially treat the bottom of your discussion board post as your reference page. You don't have to do the hanging in debt or anything like that, because it's impossible to do a discussion board. But you still have to write the reference, and then whatever information in the article, I would like you to cite it. And so, if you said, all licorice was created in Yugoslavia, okay, parentheses, the author and the year of the article or the literature that you cite that, okay? If that information or data comes from that source. And so every discussion board, you should have at least one citation on one of your postings with an in-text along with it. You can't just say, oh, this post was kind of about licorice, so here's a random source of licorice. Something in this posting had something to do with this. No, I want to know what specific sentence, okay, that has the information from the source. I want that sentence cited. There are multiple sentences, cite all of them. Does that make sense? Or even paragraph. You can cite, if one paragraph's full of just data from a source, then cite the end of the paragraph is fine, okay? So you need to have the reference written out, APA format, author, year, title, journal article, which journal article number, DOI, all of that. Doesn't have to have an hanging indent, because that's really hard to do with a discussion board, but it will have to in your assignment with an in-text citation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we need to brush up on your APA like for reals, okay? And so there are library sources. Reach out to Linda, reach out to me. I will send you some links. But if you do not know what I'm talking about, you need to spend a good hour or two doing some good APA deep dive, because this APA stuff is not going anywhere, and the expectations will become more and more strict. So hopefully you guys had exposure last quarter, hopefully had exposure in prereqs, but if I'm starting to sort of, if I'm upping the ante a little bit, perfect, great. If you're like, I don't know what he's talking about, good. This is the time in the program where you want to realize that you're not sure what I'm talking about. This is when you do not want it to be any later than this to realize that you have no idea what APA is. You know now, let me know. I'll send you sources. Let Linda know. Look online when I have posted already. Figure out how to do APA right now because you're going to be doing a whole lot of it the next year and a half, plus whatever you do afterwards, BSN, DNPs. I have high hopes for all of you. APA is going nowhere, okay? So that's the discussion board. The other reason is a lot of people had kind of flimsy posts. There's a minimum word count expectation written in the rubric. Please review that. I can't tell. There's no number on there, but I can look and see, man, that is flimsy. And then I'm going to copy paste it into a Word document to find out how many words it is, and then I will dock points. Some of you had like a sentence or two. I know that sometimes you're just saying, hey, thanks for your post. I agree with you. That's awesome, right? If you want to do that, that's great. You still need to have three total postings with the minimum word count of substance of value, one with a reference. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I clearly said that out loud. If you have any questions, first watch this again, rewatch these 6 minutes, ask a friend if they heard the same thing, and then reach out to me if you still have any clarifications. I really hope that's very clear of what the discussion board. Look at the rubric, okay? Now to sort of break into therapeutic communication, motivational interviewing, the goal of it is change, how to facilitate and structure change, which as nurses, every interaction you have with a client should have a goal or purpose, okay? So what does that mean? You shouldn't be yucking it up, shouldn't be social, shouldn't be talking about the weather or sports. Look, that's called building rapport, and there's a role to that. But if you're spending a half hour in there where every time you talk to them, there's no substantive, there's no change-focused talk, then you are you should be pushing towards something like that. So change talk is so essential and pivotal to nurses and nursing communication. That's why I love motivational interviewing, because it's straightforward. It makes a lot of sense as how to facilitate and structure change. Okay, verbal judo is very similar. It really does help foster change, behavioral change. I kind of pitched them one in motivational interviewing to help foster change, verbal judo as de-escalation, but the truth is motivational interviewing is a fabulous tool for de-escalation, and verbal judo is a fabulous change talk tool, right? Even the idea of verbal judo, it honestly prevents escalation more than it de-escalates, okay? This idea with verbal judo, you come into somebody, you're going to talk to them, you're meeting them for the first time, you're going to tell them who you are, by what authority you have, what you want to do, and why it benefits them, okay? Give everybody you ever talk to for the rest of your career those 4 pieces of information, and you will prevent an amazing amount of escalation, right? Hi, my name's Nick. I'm going to be taking care of you today as your nurse. I was just assigned. I just talked to the other nurse last shift, and we did shift report. I need to do some lab tests for you. I think that if you work with me, we'll do this pretty quick. And this information is really going to help your doctor be able to sort of create a discharge plan so we can get to know what's going on with you sooner than later. Okay? You see what I did there? I wasn't demanding. I didn't push. I told them that we're doing tests. Okay? I told, not asked. And I told him why he wants me to do these tests. What's in it for him? He wants to discharge. We need this data. We need this information to get you out of here. Okay? If I just came in and said, good morning, Dr. Johnson, or Dr. Johnson, good morning, sir, Tim, whatever, can you please, roll up your sleeve, I need to draw some blood. What? Why do you need to draw blood? I was under the impression that, you guys all that information you needed, right? Now you are negotiating. Okay. Now you're de-escalating. Now you're doing, you could have prevented it. And honestly, now you're probably going to have to wager something. You're going to have to give just some sort of negotiation, some sort of you're going to have to give something up probably now with the client. Because the client has to save face now because he got escalated. He became defensive. Now there's something that has to be sort of transactional. You have to be like, well, I know that you've been, it's something you're going to have to add something to benefit him now because now he's doing you a favor. Does that make sense? Whereas if you would have told him again with why it would have benefited him, it would have been smooth sailing. Okay. So verbal judo really is preventing escalation. I know I'm out of order now, but talking about verbal judo, another thing that I really like about verbal judo, and I've seen this done so poorly with escalated patients. In verbal judo, a lot of the techniques help with immediate compliance. How do you garnish immediate compliance? Okay. How do I prevent person here from, how do I get them to do what I need them to do? And a lot of times it's asking them to be de-escalated. It's asking them to leave an environment. It's asking them to no longer provoke somebody, whatever that is. If you're in a mental health setting or a jail setting, violence. It could be preventing violence. Police, that's it's kind of creative for police officers, but I've seen this environment a lot. So how do you get immediate compliance? And but I think that as a nurse, I just feel like when I was in floor nursing, my job was to just change people's minds. Like you're trying to get them to do something. I feel like 90% of the job was talking somebody into doing something. And so with I remember what I was trying to say now. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. When I see with people, especially who are really mad or violent, whatever, and I say, look, Jim, I need to clean up this room. You vomited in the corner. Now you're refusing to leave, right? Now maybe I won't say it like that. And now you don't want to leave. I understand you like being in this room. I gotta clean this up. I can't bring in cleaning supplies, a mop, a broom, into this room when I have clients in here for your safety and for mine. So if there's anything I can do to talk you into leaving, maybe doing something else in the meantime while I clean this room up, right? Whoever the process that was, he complies. We don't have to hands on. We don't have to carry them out. We don't have to restrain them. He does leave, but while he's leaving, he says something really, really mean about my sexuality or my ethnicity or my whatever. He does something very vulgar, and so what I've seen so many times is someone saying, "What you just say? You don't say that to me. Come back here, right? Now we're gonna get into it. You don't get. I'm gonna start taking away this, that. And now you're giving the other person what they want, and now they can come back and fight you, which they wanted to do all along. Whereas you could just say, look, they're trying to save face, right? There has to be some sort of, like I said before, there has to be something has to give. They don't just comply and say, you know what, you're right, I'm being unreasonable. Sorry, I threw up in the corner. Sorry, I've been calling everybody all these epithets. I'm going to leave now. And they leave. There's not going to happen. They have to save face and show that I'm still a big tough guy. Watch me talk all this shit to the staff. But they're complying. They're obeying. They're doing what you asked them to do. Give it to them. Let them have it. Don't call them back. And I see that, and the staff will do it. And I'm like, oh man, I thought we avoided this. And now we have a restraint. Right now we have to do hands-on. Right? Whereas the patient was complying even if they were talking shit. I hope that makes sense. That's Purple Judo is a great one. Let them have the final word. If they talk smack at you while they are listening to you and they are doing as you say, let them talk all the shit that they want to, as long as they are doing what you say. Because they're trying to save face. That is the only reason. They're not disrespecting you. They are disrespecting you, but they're not doing to be disrespectful. They're doing it to save face and save their self-esteem. Does that make sense? Okay. I diverted a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what some things that I saw with the motivational interviewing posts. A couple interesting points that I really enjoyed getting into in the classroom setting. One thing that I thought was interesting was self-disclosure. This is something that a lot of patients will do, especially initially when you're trying to build rapport, is they'll start like, oh, okay, they'll talk about themselves. They'll feel bad about talking about themselves so much, so they'll try to talk about you just because if you're building rapport in a very social way, it'll feel like a social back and forth. I've gotten a lot of discussions about self-disclosure. The textbook response is if it benefits the client. I would say that you could get along just fine, not self-disclosing ever in your entire career. You can never self-disclose and be just fine. I personally don't have a lot of hard time with it. Essentially, two ways that self-disclosure can be usually not that helpful, but it can be unharmful, if that makes sense. The first one is socially. Like, I love the Mets. I don't know if that's not like a baseball team, right? What music do you like? I love this music. Oh, I love this music too, right? There's nothing there, right? You don't say like, oh, I live on the Upper South Hill. I have 3 children. They're ages 5, 7, and 9, right? This is the Social Security, right? You're getting too much information. And there will be people out there that'll try to get the special secret information from you because they want to build a special relationship with you, right? There's kind of that sociopathic person. It's very charming. Oh my God, what part of town do you live in? Oh my God, how old are you? Right? This information, they're not necessarily looking for this information to go kill you later on. This is sort of a natural way they sort of gain sort of special information about staff so they can have special relationships, if that makes sense. They can get special favors done. This isn't certainly everybody. But that's, I think, the biggest risk with self-disclosure as far as people kind of getting kind of the hooks in a little bit and getting to know too much about you. The other thing is not necessarily fair, right? They're not there for your stuff, whatever your stuff's going on, especially if it's mental health. But, if they're grieving the loss of their bodily function, the loss of a loved one, they just don't need to hear about you. There's nothing about you that's important at the moment. I've certainly seen some self-disclosure be fabulous. And you'll watch a movie called The Listeners next quarter where a young woman does this really fabulous self-disclosure about her own self-harm. It was so good, but I really don't think 9 out of 10 people can pull that off, right? If you're talking to somebody with addiction and you have personal experience with addiction, especially if you just met them, I do not think your self-disclosure is going to be helpful. Personally, I don't think it's going to be helpful. Prove me wrong, right? But you have to be really good at that communication in order to pull off self-disclosure, especially about something that heavy, okay? But if it benefits a client, you can do it. It's very hard. I've tried it before, and all of a sudden I'm talking about myself. Oh, I just made that about me. I wish I didn't even try it. Okay. So that's self-disclosure, in my opinion. If you have a different opinion, I mean, by all means, put it in the discussion board. Say, screw this topic. I want to talk about self-disclosure. Okay. So the other thing about creating change, and a lot of times I see this when I'm like running scenarios with students who are trying to do change talk. They think that I gotta okay, this person needs to promise to stop smoking by the end of this conversation. Look, the change is going to be very subtle. And if you watch the video that I post, that I'm going to ask you to watch with Rolnick, the end of the conversation was, would you be willing to come back and talk to me about this again? Okay. That's what the change is really. It's sort of a motivational interviewing, tell me about. That's interesting. Emphasize some change talk. Okay, would you be willing to discuss this with me again sometime? Maybe my next shift, which is tomorrow. Maybe in 3 weeks from now, right? You're really sort of saying, go out and sort of process this, right? I don't need a vow saying that I promise never to smoke cigarettes again, right? You do not have to create a 180-degree change in that conversation. You will see subtle changes. And the nice thing about nurses, a lot of times, if you're their nurse for the shift, you're going to see them 3 or 4 times that shift. You might see them tomorrow because of continuity. You might be their nurse for the week, okay? So you have all of these opportunities for these really brief 2 to 3 minute change talk interactions, which will amount to a lot, right? This is not a 45-minute session. These are 3 to 5 minute conversations where you just sort of start brushing the ideas, okay? One thing that people thought up that I thought was cool, and I hope they're not just giving me what I want to hear, maybe they are. They said they're interested. They thought it was great how much information they got from just an open-ended question. The patient, it allows the patient to discuss what's important to them, and open-ended conversation. And a lot of times, I challenge you guys to try it. I bet you're going to get most of the data you need by asking some open-ended questions instead of asking the specific questions as you go through them. I would challenge you that it's not that much more time-consuming to allow the patient to lead the conversation. Okay, and honestly, you're going to get better information because they're going to talk about what they want to change, and they're more likely to do that. Okay. The other thing that people mentioned is they struggled with giving too many praising, good job, and I struggle with that too, man. I do that all the time. And you just want to. It's more effective to be more of an affirmation and to be more objective. Like example is when someone cuts their hair, don't say, "I love your haircut." Say, "Hey, you cut your hair," right? Zero judgment, zero affect, zero inflection, nothing, right? I'm not saying "Oh, you cut your hair," I'm not doing anything like that. I'm saying, "Hey, you cut your hair." Right? They can interpret how they want to. If they're insecure about it, that's data. Why? What's wrong? What is it? Huh? Okay. That's oh, I just noticed, and so I was interested. It's oh my God, no, I got lice. And so now they're expressing their feelings and they're getting somewhere, right? Probably you're gonna be oh yeah, do you like it? I just got it done last week, right? And so you're not telling them how you feel, and they'll tell you how they feel. Does that make sense? You try to keep it neutral. I do praising a lot. With therapists, it's a bigger deal because then it becomes about pleasing the therapists. Oh, good job. That's great work. So then they're coming back telling you all the great things because they want that praise sort of subconsciously. Nurses is more brief unless you're not going to be spending an hour a week with somebody. You're going to be spending 5 to 10 minutes, several times. And so it's, it's sort of sometimes you just got to do whatever you got to do to make things happen, right? And if that's praise, that's fine. If you find yourself using praise to get through a conversation, then there's more effective ways to do it. If you dropped it, if you prevented yourself from doing it, you'd realize that the things that you would say instead are much more effective, right? Because you're affirmations, right? Saying, man, you really care a lot about the people that you really love your mom a lot, right? Reflections, this stuff that's much more effective in allowing the patient to guide the conversation. But if you're telling them how great it is that they are working out 3 times a week, now they're all going to talk about that because they think you want to talk about that. They're not going to talk about what they find important. That's kind of the reason why using praising isn't perfect, but I do it. But I would challenge you guys, especially if you find yourself doing a lot, try to stop and see what you do to compensate for that loss. Let me see. One person talked about and I don't think he meant to say this. He said, "How come? Why do you feel that way?" And how come how come you're feeling that way, right? And I think I'm really glad you brought that up. And why is such a it's so important to know why somebody does something. It really is important to know. They probably don't know that. The patient has no idea why they did something or why they felt some way, right? Mental health, identifying depression, anxiety. A lot of times, I'm educating people that depression, anxiety, pathologically, when it's major depressive or generalized anxiety disorder, by definition, are for no reason, right? Or for an exaggerated reason, right? You're literally feeling depressed for no reason. You're really feeling anxious for no reason. Okay, a lot of people will pick the most either makes the most sense or the most convenient. I'm feeling really, really anxious right now. The mailman is coming 15 minutes later than he was yesterday. I don't think that's it. I think it's something else. I think it's maybe for no reason, but you're associating with it. So the why, the patient rarely knows the why. And if you ask why, even if the patient knows, they're not going to tell you the truth. If I'm gardening in my front yard and you're like, why are you doing that? Okay, if you say it like that, I will lie to you. Even if I'm gardening for very reasonable reasons. I'm gardening because this is my garden, and I garden sometimes, right? That's my reason. But if you say, why are you gardening like that? I'm going to make up a reason that I think you want to hear instinctively. I'm going to do that right away. I'm going to be like, well, it's 2:30 in the afternoon, and I got 3 o'clock, I'm just going to make some shit up because you've put me in that place. The moment you say why like that to anybody, they are not telling you the truth because you've made them feel like it's weird, even if it's completely normal. So why you're doing one thing, when you're saying, tell me, I want you to make up a reason why you feel that way or did that. Okay, that's the first thing you're doing when you say why. The second thing you're asking when you ask why, you're saying, why did you do that to me, right? So why are you feeling anxious to me, or nurse? And they'll be like, look, I'm really sorry, I'm trying hard. And it's like, no, it's not useful data. You got to get to the why somewhere else. Really good clinicians, really good communicators can say why. I would assume you're not one of them. And unless you get really proficient at this, maybe become a therapist and you're like, I can ask why. I've asked why before. I rarely do, but I have. And you just have to make sure it's not coming from that judgmental place. I would say, for everybody's sake here, throw why away. Don't ask why anymore. Get to the why somewhere else. All right, what are we talking about? Are we talking about agreeing? Let's see. Okay, so, and I think that what we're going to see is, the reason why I'm doing this is because you're not going to agree with all of this. You're going to buy into some of it, okay? And that's perfect. Find what you like and use that. If you don't think it's going to work, then try what you think is going to work, okay? That's what I'm hoping to see. The truth is, I think a lot of you are probably done a lot of this already. Like, because I saw that on the discussion board. Oh, I didn't realize this had a name, but I was doing this already. That's because you're you're building those skills already. A lot of you have worked with people. A lot of you worked in healthcare. A lot of you worked as nurses' aides, right? Even if you haven't worked in healthcare, you've worked with people, and you've developed these skills to get along. So I think creating a formulaic like this approach as MI and verbal judo is just going to give you a more systematic way to do it. I think you'll just feel like you'll see that it makes you more effective at it, more consistently successful, right? It works when you do it. You don't really pay attention to when you do it, don't do it. So if you do it on purpose all the time, you're going to find a lot of success. The second thing is, people who really struggle, and I know we have students like this, you honest with yourself, struggle to get people to change their mind, to de-escalate. You tend to butt heads with a certain kind of people a lot. Sticking to a formulaic approach like this is going to make it step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 possible to do, right? When I first worked at the hospital, there was not given a systemic way to de-escalate somebody, so I had to figure it out. It worked really well when I realized I did these things. When I didn't do these things, it worked really poorly. And then when they developed a systematic way to do it at the hospital, I was like, man, I really would have liked that, to have that when I first started, because then I can just do it on everybody. Try these techniques on the next 100 interactions. By then you will know what works really well, what kind of doesn't work, and you can start adapting it to your own style. But I would say for the first 100 times, do it one way, and then change it the next 100 times, and change it the next 100 times. It's 100 interactions is going to happen in 2 weeks, right? Don't think, oh, it's too long. No, for 2 weeks, interact with people one way, and then make adjustments from there on. Does that make sense? That's all I really wanted to say. So if you do have any questions, sorry for the longish video, but hopefully it was good data. Just let me know. Send me an email. All right, best.